The parents of this girl who don't have a daughter anymore, they don't get a phone call from Joe Biden when she was murdered by a man who was only in this country because of Joe Biden's policies. He was only released in New York because of Joe Biden and Mayor Eric Adams' policies in that city. And he was only free and emboldened to walk the streets of Athens, Georgia, because of the policies of this mayor. They're all guilty. They're all guilty. But this is a tipping point. This is a point where this entire election could be decided. The fallout over the murder of Laken Riley in Georgia continues. And if you want to separate politics from this, you're dreaming. It's impossible to separate politics from this murder because political policy was very much in play in the lead up to and the actual event itself. There's just no denying that. Donald Trump knows that. His campaign knows that. Take a look at the ad that they're running.
Following some breaking news out of Athens, Georgia.
2 colleges have canceled classes today as police look for a murderer.
Laken Riley was described as a shining light.
Dean's List nursing student.
Police arrested 26-year-old Jose Antonio Ibarra.
Ibarra crossed into Texas illegally back in September of 2022, then was released into the United States on parole.
We're confident this border is secure.
We have a secure border.
We agree that the border is secure.
And we have a process in place to manage migrants at the border.
The border is closed. The border is secure.
We have taken unprecedented action.
Look, the border is not open.
Fox News can now confirm that Jose Antonio Ibarra was busted last year in New York City. The ICE didn't even have time to put in a detainer on him because, hey, he was already back out on the streets.
It's a highly effective ad. It's a powerful ad, and it's ripped from the headlines right now. And it's not just about Laken Riley, of course, in Georgia, because we see this in our neighborhoods and our communities, the rise in violent crime, people being let back out on the streets, people who shouldn't even be in this country in the first place. And if you dare to point it out, like President Trump does vividly in that ad, suddenly the Democrats, the media, they turn on you and they tell you that you're the problem. You're not the problem. Something is completely off kilter in this country, and there's nothing wrong with pointing that out. Meanwhile, we're actually learning more and more about this grisly murder. CBS News actually doing some journalism. They got a contact within the police department who told them that the suspect in the killing used an object as a weapon in the crime that caused blunt force trauma and is accused of disfiguring her skull, according to newly filed arrest affidavits. Jose Ibarra faces multiple murder and assault charges, also accused of dragging 22-year-old Laken Riley to a secluded area on Thursday, according to one of the affidavits obtained by CBS News. The allegation that he dragged Riley's body was filed to support the charge of concealing the death of another person. Authorities haven't said exactly how Riley was killed, only that her death was caused by blunt force trauma. Further details about the type of object used or exactly how she was killed aren't included in the affidavits for arrest. By the way, there's also reporting that Laken Riley attempted to call 911 at the time of her abduction, and local police in Athens, Georgia have not yet released that 911 call, and one wonders why. You know, oftentimes if there's a 911 call for a crime, the police might not release it because it would impede their investigation, but they've got their suspect now. The only reason why the police department wouldn't release that right now is because it is politically volatile. And it's so politically volatile that even the mayor of Athens, Georgia, well, he had to face his community as he tried to tamp down any concerns that this murder was in any way directly related to his or his party's or his president's neglect of basic law enforcement and immigration laws. Watch what happened.
Well, 2019 was not that long ago. You might remember the dynamic we were living in the late teens in this country, where you had the President of the United States speaking in the most vile terms about people who were foreign born. And you had that notion metastasizing in places like Charlottesville.
Yeah, now, so this is great that he's getting heckled by his community there and by his citizens, by his voters, the people he works for. And of course, this is a lie that is heard 10 times around the world before anybody actually calls the brakes and actually calls them on their lie. That's what we're doing right now. That's why you come here to watch this show. Donald Trump never referred to anyone foreign born in vile terms. This isn't about where you were born, you meandering left-wing hack. If Donald Trump in 2019 had anything to say with regard to the border security and immigration issue, it was, if you want to come to this country, do it legally. If you're in this country illegally, you need to go back where you came from, especially if you broke the law. So now here's this hack, the woke mayor of Athens, Georgia, where this murder took place, trying to walk back his own policies, which, by the way, are sanctuary city policies that he enacted at that time. And he's trying to excuse it. And by the way, I'm glad he's doing it this way, because listen to what he's saying. Well, we had to enact sanctuary city policies here in Athens because Trump said mean things. Yeah, that's the way you run a town. President said mean things, so we're going to virtue signal and set up laws and put them in place so that it attracts people in the country illegally. And the next thing you know, you've got a murdered young girl. But watch what happens. He continues to double down on this, and watch what his voters, again, the people who pay his bills, pay his salary, how they respond.
In the main, I caution against conflating immigration and crime. The data demonstrates that the two are not connected. Because the impact of federal immigration policy on localities has been under such consistent discussion in recent months, I do want to say a few words about this. It's my 18th year as a local government policymaker, and my work has overlapped with 4 U.S. presidencies and numerous iterations of Congress. All of them have failed to reach agreement on how to handle immigration.
I say it to you almost every day now, and I want to keep saying it to you because you saw what he just did there. This issue is not about immigration. And this is what the left and the Democrats and the media continue to deflect on. This is a safety, security, law, and order issue. It just so happens to be linked to our porous border that wasn't porous when this president came in. Now, he may want to enact new immigration policies without actually going through the messy business of passing laws and, persuading you, the American people. So to fulfill his immigration desires, he went ahead and lifted basic border security protocols. The two are only related in that way. You can go ahead and try to solve the immigration problem by keeping the border secure, or you can go ahead and ignore the immigration problem and still have the border secure. The original sin here is removing the security at the border. And now when you call them on it and you show them the results of that failed policy, they say, well, nobody's been able to fix immigration. Well, nobody's been able to fix immigration if you believe that it's broken while still keeping the border secure. You see the difference, right? And you point to them and you say, look at that border, look at what's happening, and now look at what's happening in our communities because of the border, and they'll just turn to you and say, well, yeah, immigration is a problem. Well, his residents were not having any of it. Watch what happened in this press conference as he continued to do this.
That term means different things to different people depending on the context of the discussion.
We know what
Many-
it means.
Many of the elements, many of the elements,
Liar.
we are here to listen.
You're a liar.
We're here to listen. There'll be
You're
time for
a liar.
questions.
You are guilty and got blood on your head for this murder, sir.
Many of the aspects that are ascribed to sanctuary cities
We know what sanctuary
are
cities
things
mean.
that are disallowed by Georgia law. And we contribute a document every year to the Georgia Department of Audits indicating that we do not correspond to these definitions under state law.
Yes, you do.
And no policies have been adopted
Please
by the
stop
mayor and
lying.
commission
You're
that have
insulting
created
our
sanctuary
intelligence.
city status in
Sir,
Athens.
You need to resign.
One protocol that sometimes arises.
Resign! You allowed
protocol.
this to happen.
Yeah, it didn't go any better for him. Now, what he's trying to do there is deflect. Another word, as they've been calling it, is lie. Lie, lie, lie. Of course, they had a sanctuary city policy, and we all know what sanctuary city policies are. The sanctuary city policy is if the local police arrest somebody for breaking the law and it turns out they're in the country illegally, they're not going to turn them over to ICE to be deported. If ICE opens up a detainer on that person and says, hey, you've got somebody that's on our files, hand them over to us, your brothers in federal law enforcement, we'll handle it from here. The local police are not allowed to do that. That's what sanctuary city policies are. He's now denying that he enacted any of those policies. Well, ain't the internet a great thing? It's got lots of receipts and evidence. Here he is at his city council meeting, virtue signaling about immigration, grandstanding, trying to get headlines from the woke left in the media about how he's standing up to Donald Trump.
The Athens Clark County Unified Government is welcoming to people from all lands and backgrounds and strives to foster a community where individuals and families of all statuses feel safe, are able to prosper, and can breathe free.
Yeah, breathe free, regardless of your immigration status. Therefore, we're enacting these policies so you can feel warm and fuzzy right up until somebody gets murdered. And then, hey, we didn't have anything to do with that. That wasn't us. Oh, all the presidents that I've had to work with, they've had a problem with immigration. Just lying, despicable. Can I call him a hack again? He's a hack. He's exactly what's wrong with politicians, especially liberal Democrat politicians. Also, did you notice in that press conference how he said, you know, we shouldn't take one incident and suddenly extrapolate from that a problem with an overarching policy. This is a standalone incident. The last thing you want to do is in the heat of the moment, in the swell of emotions, take a horrific crime like this and the death of a person and then turn it into some big transformational, groundbreaking policy shift, right? That's what they're all saying now. Well, here's that same guy right after another standalone incident, the death of George Floyd. That didn't happen in his state, didn't happen on the campus of the University of Georgia in Athens, Georgia. No, it happened over 1,000 miles away in Minnesota. But here he is, marching with the bullhorn with Black Lives Matter.
Gathering like Athens gathers every time there's work to do. And there is work to do right now. The message that I want to convey in just a few seconds is that Black lives don't just matter when we have encounters with law enforcement. Black lives matter when people have access to everyday resources. Black lives matter when there's fair housing everywhere. Black lives matter when a woman is pregnant with you. Black lives matter when you come into this world at Athens Regional and St. Mary's. Black lives matter in every classroom in this community. And I appreciate you working and promoting this cause and this movement and working with us to make this a reality in the days and months and years ahead. God bless.
Yeah, it's funny how he could mention how Black Lives Matters and he referred to, you know, people being born and pregnant women. I wonder if it's a black unborn baby that somebody wants to abort. Does that Black Life Matter as well? But I don't want to go off on a tangent here. There he was utilizing that one incident, the death of George Floyd up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and extrapolating it in Athens, Georgia, for every single left-wing, big government, Democrat, liberal cause that he wanted, you know, whether it's fair housing or education or abortion or pregnancy or free healthcare, it doesn't matter. George Floyd's death now becomes the tipping point as all the dominoes fall for everything that I and my party want to do. But the death of Laken Riley, shockingly, should never, ever, how dare you even suggest that her death should be used as an example of a policy that this guy embraces. Are you following the hypocrisy here? And that's just the one guy. That's the mayor of Athens, but he's a perfect example of what we're seeing right now. As of now, President Biden still has not called the family of Laken Riley. Have you noticed how if there's a shooting somewhere that he can turn into a reason to infringe on your Second Amendment rights and raise money from left-wing activists? He'll make the phone call to someone who died in that shooting. Or have you noticed how if there's some sort of issue with the LGBTQ plus community, and again, he can raise political money or divide this country, he'll go ahead and call the person affected by the LGBTQ plus policy. He's really, really active, making phone calls to victims that he considers politically viable. But the parents of this girl who don't have a daughter anymore, they don't get a phone call from Joe Biden when she was murdered by a man who was only in this country because of Joe Biden's policies. He was only released in New York because of Joe Biden and Mayor Eric Adams' policies in that city. And he was only free and emboldened to walk the streets of Athens, Georgia, because of the policies of this mayor. They're all guilty. They're all guilty. But this is a tipping point. This is a point where this entire election could be decided. We'll get to that in just a moment when we talk about President Trump and Biden both going down to the border today. Meanwhile, what's going on with the media on how they cover the Laken Riley story? Look at the New York Post. The New York Post, even you, New York Post, migrant charged with murdering Laken Riley likely panicked when she fought back, according to a profiler. So the murderer, the cold-blooded, despicable murderer, he panicked when she fought back. Lesson here, ladies, don't fight back. Are you freaking kidding me? We're already in the season of blaming the victim here for fighting back? No, actually, there needs to be a lot more fighting back. In fact, I'm upset that Laken Riley couldn't actually arm herself to protect herself on that campus. But I bet you any money the University of Georgia is a gun-free zone, because college students need to be victims. They need to be, vulnerable in every way possible. God forbid they're able to actually defend themselves on a college campus. They have to be sitting ducks. Meanwhile, over at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Mary Catherine Ham points out that their headline is the literal Norm Macdonald joke about a terror attack and it being really rough on the Muslim community. Not fair. After University of Georgia killing, Venezuelans in Georgia worry about backlash. That's the angle we're taking today? While candlelight vigils are still taking place, I don't even think we've had a funeral yet for this young woman. Imagine being a family member of Laken Riley. Imagine being her parents and seeing this headline in your local newspaper. The death of Laken Riley has made Athens the face of this country's immigration debate, and local immigrants and their advocates are concerned. Yeah, well, I'm concerned too. But I think we're concerned about very different things. Boy, the murder of this girl is going to really make it harder for illegal immigrants. This is a time right now where this election could actually turn on this story. That's the reason why you see Joe Biden going to the border right now. It's the reason why you see President Trump going to the border right now. They say presidential elections are affected by parties, policy, and people. That's what people vote for. That's what voters vote for. They vote for their party often. They vote for the policies that the candidate espouses, or they vote for the person, the personality, gosh, I want to have a beer with that guy, or I trust him, or he gives me a good vibe, or even worse, I don't want to vote for that person because I don't want to spend 4 years with that person in my living room, right? Policies, parties, and then the person. But sometimes Sometimes a black swan event will happen. Sometimes there will be an issue, a unifying moment where a campaign, a presidential election can be defined. And it seems to me that the immigration border security issue could very well be it. The death of Laken Riley could very well be it. I think that's why you see Biden and Trump both going to the border. Trump had already scheduled to be there. Biden seemed a little late in the game, but clearly the focus groups and the market testing tells the Biden campaign that they've got to make a show of what they're doing.